Hey everyone, I'm Kai, and today I just want to do a quick video talking about the new Line 6 HX1 pedal. I do have this one pre-ordered and I plan on demoing it once it gets here, but I couldn't resist sharing some of my thoughts on it early, especially after seeing quite a lot of unfavourable comments about it online. When Line 6 released this pedal, so many people jumped into the comments section to voice their negativity. And you know, as is often the case in this industry, the negative folk are the loudest of the bunch. I'm going to address some of the concerns that people have had about this pedal throughout this video. Personally, I was super excited when I saw that this one launched. I loved the old Line 6 M5 and this HX1 seems to be the direct successor to that. Now, I kind of predicted this HX1 with a shoddy mock-up I did a couple of years ago, and I believe it got Line 6's attention. Just to be crystal clear, I'm not claiming any sort of credit for this one, that would be ridiculous. I just like to think that my post and the attention that it received in the comments was at least part of the discussion when creating the Line 6 HX1. So firstly, what is this pedal? The HX1 is Line 6's latest offering in the Helix family of products. This has all of the effects of the larger Helix units but with none of the amp and cabinet modelling. It's similar to the HX effects, though you're only able to run one effect at a time, hence the name HX1. Given the stripped down nature of this pedal, they were able to shrink the enclosure down to roughly the size of a Boss pedal, or half the size of the HX Stomp. It's powered by a regular 2.1mm 9V power supply. It's a little power hungry at 500 milliamps, though most modern power supplies should have an outlet that covers this. In the FAQ, Line 6 also mentioned that the HX1 runs at 400 milliamps, so I'm guessing the 500 milliamp on the box is just a secure failsafe for them. This means that you're able to power it much easier than something like, say, the HX Stomp, where you've got to consider the current doublers, the splitters, the converters, and all sorts of things just to get it powered. All of that fuss will eat up some of your available power for your other pedals on your pedal board, so this HX1 really cuts down a lot of that and functions more like a normal pedal. Who is this HX1 for? Well, contrary to popular belief, it's not marketed towards users of the Helix floor. In fact, I think the only Helix users that this product really applies to would be HX Stomp users. All of the super DSP hungry effects like the polyphonic pitch shifting are here in the HX1. That means you're able to offload a significant portion of the processor's load onto this HX1 unit rather than using it in the HX Stomp, for example. Helix users aside, I think the main target market for this pedal is going to be sort of people that are hesitant about digital or people that just want one-off effects now and then. Personally, I'm part of the latter crowd. I like to have a multi-effects pedal on my board that just covers things like ring modulators and octave effects and, you know, weirder things that I don't want dedicated pedals for. The HX1 for me fills the exact brief that I was hoping the Zoom MS50 would hit. Side note, if you haven't seen my scolding review of the Zoom MS50, I'll leave a link to that one in the description box down below. Now, prior to the HX1, I hadn't really found any pedal board friendly multi-effects units that really fit my need. The HX1 can also be run in a sort of pseudo 4-cable method. If you sacrifice the stereo nature of the pedal, you can run 2 mono effects in different places in your chain. However, you can only use one effect at once, so this is going to be on a per preset basis. The HX1 also has MIDI in and out. There's no manual available for this pedal yet, but as far as I can tell, this means that you'll be able to switch the presets using a MIDI controller. This makes it extremely versatile, especially for live use. Pair this with a MIDI foot switch pedal, something like the Boss MS3 or the Gig Rig system, and you open up a ton of options for yourself. So let's talk about some of these negative comments and try to dissect them a bit. The overarching one that comes up is, why does it only load one effect at a time when the Zoom MS50, for example, can load 6 effects at a time? I know what Line 6 are like. I can say with near certainty that they had a mock-up or a prototype of every combination you could think of for this pedal. I'm sure they had some with a full display, some with amp and cabinet modelling, maybe some with XLR outs, some with 2 or 3 blocks. I can imagine that they've covered all of their bases with it and landed on this one. The point is that it's going to be a very rare occurrence where someone will bring something up to Line 6 and it will be a totally new idea to them. Now, I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up their backsides, they've been in this industry longer than a lot of us have been alive. Every feature on this pedal was chosen to fit the mission objective they had set out for it. Adding amps and cabs, for example, may have overcomplicated the UI. It might have necessitated a larger screen, which would then require more power, and with more power, then you'll need a different power supply for it, and it would sacrifice that pedalboard friendly format. I have a funny feeling with the launch of the HX1 pedal, Line 6 are also planning an HX amp pedal. That way the HX1 would be specifically for effects, and the HX amp would be specifically for people needing an amp in their setup. Line 6 know the brief that they had to hit with this HX1. It might have just been the cost, it might have been the form factor, it might have been the power supply. There's all sorts of different things that contribute to why they made the decisions that they made. I can say with near certainty that some sacrifices were made in order to get where they got, but that is just how every single product development goes. Now, from what I can tell, there are some actual measurable negatives to this pedal. I'm not saying it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Firstly, this pedal has no trails when you're switching between presets. This is when you have something like the decay of a reverb trailing off. If you switch presets, that decay will cut out completely. Now, this may be game over for some users, but I believe I can see why Line 6 did it. Adding the spillover, as proven with the Helix floor, means you have to load 2 chains at once. For this HX1 pedal, it would mean loading 2 effects at a time rather than 1. Now, you can probably see where the comments would go if it had the spillover and people were only using it for drives, for instance. People would wish they could turn the spillover off and run the 2 effects instead, and then it just clutters up the UI and causes a ton of other issues related to that, like for instance the processing power. If you've got, say, a high DSP block like a strong reverb, and you wanted that to spill over into another high DSP block like polyphonic pitch shifting maybe, you need a much stronger processor to be able to run this, which then would likely need more power, and then again we're sacrificing this pedalboard friendly format that the HX1 set out to achieve. The other thing I've noticed that is probably going to be an easy fix with a firmware update is that there's no indicators for the legacy effects, at least not as far as I can tell. Now, this is something you only really know if you're already a Line 6 Helix user, but the legacy effects are all taken from the M series of Line 6 pedals. This means that they're a little bit outdated by today's standards, and Line 6 have even replaced a lot of these themselves with Helix grade effects. With no indicators, I guess you don't know whether you're using a legacy effect or one of the Helix effects. I guess the priority here is to use your ears and decide for yourself whether or not you like it, regardless of whether it's an old effect or a new effect. I also think I would have liked to have seen a desktop editor on this one. We've got a Line 6 librarian which can organize your presets and rename them, but as far as I can tell, there's no way to actually edit the presets themselves. I know this is a little bit surplus to requirement with a single effect pedal, but it's still nice to edit stuff on the computer sometimes. One more dose of internet negativity that I've seen crop up a couple of times, especially regarding this release, is that Line 6 have milked this Helix cow dry and are doing everything they can to squeeze another penny out of it. This one is sort of a loaded one. I think quite a lot of people are expecting to see the 2nd generation of Helix be announced and the previous Helix tech be discarded entirely. Now, I actually don't think this is going to be something we see for a long while. Line 6 are very keen to keep the Helix family updated, as proven with the hinted at 3.70 update in the HX1 FAQ. This is a lot better of a business model than some other companies who will update their entire line every 6 months, leaving a path of e-waste behind them. Line 6 are keeping all of those original Helix owners faithful by updating their unit every so often to refresh it and make it feel more modern. What I'd rather see than a total generational refresh is a Helix Plus. I imagine this as sort of a modernized Helix floor, maybe a little bit more expensive. Now, I'm not sure if Line 6 are going to go for a piece of the pie with the touchscreens and the profiling captures and all of that sort of stuff, but if they did, I think this is the path they would go down. Another thing I think people are missing is the context of the price of this pedal. If you look at it against maybe the HX Stomp or the Zoom MS50 for instance, it may not seem like it's that great value for money. However, I think in the context of its contemporaries, the HX1 is incredibly well priced for what you're getting. Line 6 themselves sort of jokingly said they could have done an orange one, a green one, and a blue one. This would be a dedicated reverb unit, a dedicated delay unit, and a dedicated modulation unit. They said they're not greedy enough to do this as the HX effects have already been established previously, and it doesn't cost them anything extra to stick them all in one unit. If you look at stuff like the Strifecta, the Boss Trifecta, the newer standalone UAD pedals, or the Eventide pedals, the Line 6 HX1 is actually sitting at a really cheap price point. Pedals are more expensive nowadays, so of course the HX1 is going to cost more than a decade-old multi-effects unit. In conclusion, I do think this pedal is going to fit the market quite nicely, regardless of the opinion of some soured Helix users. Yes, you may be able to get a used HX Stomp or Pod Go for the same price as the HX1, but in 6 months' time you'll also be able to get a used HX1, so that's sort of a poor comparison. I don't see this pedal as missing any key features, and I'm incredibly excited to get my hands on it and see what it's all about. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. Feel free to drop a comment letting me know your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear from all sides on this one. I would also love it if you could keep your comments respectful and civil, because at the end of the day, this is all just stuff and things. Thank you for watching. I've been Kai.